Listen closely. The narrative I am about to share is not merely the record of a common criminal. This is a chronicle of boiling blood, a legend that defines the very essence of what it means to be a true man. Before we venture into this epic saga, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel and leave a like out of respect for the legend. If you are a devotee of the anime or manga Baki, you will undoubtedly recognize this iconic back, a man who bears the massive tattoo of the standing man, Otokodachi. This is the fighting genius, Hanayama Kaoru. He is a monster capable of shearing through thick decks of cards with his fingertips and halting charging vehicles with his bare hands. Readers often tell themselves, it's only a manga, no such human could exist in the physical world. But what if I told you that this unbelievable, monstrous character was actually based on a person of flesh and blood? A man so singular and wild that the manga artist famously remarked, he was the easiest character to draw. His appearance, his life, his very existence was fiction brought into reality. Today, I am introducing the real-life legend behind the scar, Hanagata Kei. His life was a sequence of bizarre, shocking events that defy common logic. Let us turn the pages of this legendary tale, one by one. Surprisingly, he did not begin his life at the bottom of society. He was, in fact, an elite student attending Meiji University, one of the prestigious institutions in Japan. Standing over 6 feet tall, possessing the looks of a cinema star and a brilliant mind, he was a young man who had been granted everything. Had he remained on that path, he likely would have become a titan of industry or a pillar of politics. However, the chaotic, lawless atmosphere of post-war Japan stirred a dormant beast within him. In an era where violence superseded the law, he realized he was not meant to sit at a desk twirling a pen. He was born to swing his fists in the grit of the streets. Unable to contain the fire in his blood, he turned his back on the university and walked into the underworld of his own volition. The path he chose led him to the most dangerous and unique organization in Tokyo at the time, the Ando Gumi. This was no ordinary gang of thugs. The boss, Ando Noboru, was also a former university student, and many members were ex-military officers or intellectual elites. They were a sophisticated collective, gangsters who wore sharp suits and operated with calculated precision. Yet, even among these sharp-witted elites, Hanagata Kei stood out instantly. It was not merely his intellect that set him apart, but his overwhelming, unrivaled capacity for violence. Within this world of brutality, he lived by a very specific, unshakable code. Real men do not use tools. He harbored an absolute disdain for weapons. Yakuza wars are savage affairs. Men wield gleaming katanas, sashimi knives, and steel pipes to ensure victory. But Hanagata was different. In the heart of a war zone, he stood dressed in nothing but a crisp white suit, armed with nothing but his bare hands. In the parlance of the underworld, this style is known as sutegoro, the art of bare-knuckle brawling. Even if an adversary attacked him with a steel pipe and murderous intent, he would not flinch. Instead, he would take the blow against his forearm, enduring the bone-crushing impact to create an opening, then drive a heavy fist into his opponent's face. A single strike from Hanagata was enough to shatter the jaw of a giant and render him unconscious instantly. The Ando Gumi has a monster who can kill a bull with his bare hands. This rumor swept through Tokyo like a wildfire. Rival gang members would flee in terror at the mere sight of his white suit in the distance. Shortly after joining, he rose to the rank of captain, writing his own legend in blood. But every hero must face a trial. The night that would define his legacy finally arrived. It was a dark night in the back alleys of Shibuya, with rain falling in torrents. Dozens of elite members from a rival syndicate, the Toseikai, lay in ambush. As Hanagata entered the narrow passage, over 20 men lunged from the shadows. In their hands, katanas and long knives glistened in the rain. It was a flawless trap. There was no escape. An ordinary man would have collapsed and begged for mercy. Instead, Hanagata slowly removed his hands from his pockets. Rather than fear, a strange smile crept across his lips. This looks like fun. A brutal, crimson-soaked battle commenced in the downpour. He moved like a predator, dodging blade strikes by a hair's breadth and breaking the limbs of armed men with his grip. But the numbers were overwhelming. Facing 20 armed assassins with bare hands is an impossible task. In a split second, a rival captain leaped and swung his blade through the air. With a sickening sound, the steel cut deep, slicing diagonally across Hanagata's face, from his forehead down to his cheek. It was a wound that should have been fatal. His white shirt was instantly stained red. The enemies lowered their weapons, certain of their victory. It's over. He's dead. But in that moment, something impossible happened. Hanagata, whose head was bowed, began to shake. He slowly lifted his blood-slicked face, and he was laughing. It was not a grimace of pain, it was a smile of pure, unadulterated madness. Is that all you have? With his face split open, he spat out the blood pooling in his mouth, clenched his fists, and charged once more. Struck with terror, his attackers began to retreat. This man isn't human. He's immortal. He's a demon. Men holding swords were running in fear from a man with nothing but his hands. That massive diagonal scar became his lifelong trademark. Following that night, he was known throughout the underworld as the undead, a force of nature that no one dared to challenge. However, the end of this legendary man was tragically hollow. The year was 1963. He was only 33 years old, in his absolute prime. One night, he was stabbed to death near his home by a rival gang member lying in wait. It was not a glorious death on a battlefield, but a cowardly sneak attack in the dark. It was a cheap assassination, a death unbecoming a warrior of his stature. Upon hearing the news, his boss, Ando Noboru, reportedly wept for days, refusing all food and drink. Boss Ando, who later disbanded the gang and became a famous actor, mourned him for the rest of his life. If Hanagata were still alive, my life and the fate of our organization would have been entirely different. Though he lived only 33 years, the sheer intensity of his life was passed down through the decades. Years later, a manga artist heard this legend and picked up his pen. Thus, Hanayama Kaoru was born. The courage to stand firm before a blade, the madness to smile in the face of death, and the stubborn, foolish code to rely only on one's own strength until the very end. If this is not the ultimate romance of a man, then what is? The character Hanayama Kaoru versus his real-life inspiration, Hanagata Kei. Which do you find more imposing? And what in your mind defines a true man? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. This has been The Legend Reader. If you crave more powerful, epic chronicles, do not forget to subscribe. I will see you in the next legend.